In 2011, I took a stage in New York City to tell a story in a competition, and I thought it would be the one and only story I ever told. And something crazy happened that night. I sort of fell in love with standing on stages and sharing stories about myself. And for years, I did that, and I won lots of competitions. I got known as one of the most successful storytellers in those sort of circles. And as I began telling stories on stages here in Connecticut, when my wife and I launched our own storytelling organization.
Welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast, where we bring to you the most successful, happy, fulfilled gentlemen from around the world who have been able to conquer themselves, their life, their marriage, and their businesses. You will be learning from four-dimensional gentlemen who have cracked the code to the science of having it all. The question is, how can married entrepreneurs with kids become gentlemen, achieve true freedom, and build a successful, happy, and fulfilled life, marriage, and business? This show will give you the answer for that. My name is Alex Ramirez, and I'm your host, and you're welcome to the Gentleman Success, Happiness, Fulfillment Talk podcast. Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another episode of the Gentleman Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. As always, I have an incredible guest with me today that I'm very excited to get to talk to, learn from, and connect with. And I'm very excited to get to talk about what we're going to talk about. Because like stories are one of the most powerful things that you can know how to do well, because you can use them to influence, you can use them to lead, you can use them to sell, you can use them to persuade, you can use them for everything. And I'm very excited to dive deep into that. But before I introduce this gentleman to you, I just want to ask you for a favor. I want to ask you that if you get something out of this interview, if you get some type of value, some type of insight, a skill, knowledge, information, or the inspiration to go out and tell and keep on moving forward towards your goals, perhaps tell your story, I want to ask you to please share this episode with 10 people. Share with 10 friends, share it on Facebook, on Instagram, on your stories. Send it to your mother, to your father, to a business owner that you know. Share it with 10 friends, since this is how we grow. This is how we're able to share our message and motivate, inspire, and bless other entrepreneurs out there, other men and women, to level up, change their lives, and tap into their God-given unlimited potential. And I truly believe that in order to do that, you got to tell stories. And today, I have Matthew Dix. He's the author of Someday is Today and 9 other books, a best-selling novelist, nationally recognized storyteller, an award-winning elementary school teacher. He teaches storytelling and communications at universities, corporate workplaces, and community organizations. Matthew has won multiple Moth Grand Slam story competition, and together with his wife created the organization Speak Up to help others share their stories. They also co-host the Speak Up Storytelling podcast. He lives in Connecticut with his family, and I'm very excited to have you, Matthew. Thank you very much for being here, man. And you are welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here.
So, Matthew, the first thing that I do with my guest, man, is I ask them to walk us through their entrepreneurial journey in 75 seconds or less.
All right. Well, in 2011, I took a stage in New York City to tell a story in a competition, and I thought it would be the one and only story I ever told. And something crazy happened that night. I sort of fell in love with standing on stages and sharing stories about myself. And for years I did that, and I won lots of competitions. I got known as one of the most successful storytellers in those sort of circles. And as I began telling stories on stages here in Connecticut, when my wife and I launched our own storytelling organization, people in the audiences, business owners, religious people, people of every sort, really, started to recognize that I was a person who understood stories and could tell effective stories. And they'd realize, the smart ones at least at first, realized that storytelling could help their businesses, could help them with their congregants, could help them with their trial cases, and everything else in between. So since I began telling stories in 2011, I work with corporations and universities and Santa Clauses and people who want to do better in the dating life, and priests and ministers and rabbis and attorneys, and every type of person that you can imagine has sort of figured out that storytelling can level up whatever you're doing, even if it means I want to make a new friend. Storytelling can help you get there. And so my journey was an unexpected one. It was an unplanned one. It was really the willingness to say yes to every opportunity and every door that opened, and sort of be willing to step through that door and see what's on the other side.
Cool. You
How'd I
told
do?
that beautifully. Yeah. Awesome.
75 seconds? Was I
You
close?
nailed it. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. And yeah, like I've been realizing the power of stories, like, not too long ago. And it's exciting, like, just to be able to use stories to persuade people, to influence, to make a complex, like, idea, very simple in order for someone else to understand. Like, it's so powerful. So, like, why do you think stories are so important? Just to, like, let the audience know, like, what are some of the things that makes storytelling very important?
Sure. It does a few things that few others do. One is it's memorable. You hear a good story, you remember it for a very long time. If you've read a book or seen a movie that you loved, it sort of lives inside your heart and your mind, possibly for the rest of your life. And so, in that way, stories can really become a part of us. They're also emotionally engaging, which is very unusual to find something that I can sort of make you laugh, and then a minute later make you cry, and then a minute later after that put you on the edge of your seat. But storytelling can do all those things. So those connections, those emotional connections that we make with people, really mean something. And you know one of the things that's happened to me over the course of my career is I've become the bearer of more secrets than you could ever imagine, because as soon as you
Mm,
tell a story, a real heartfelt, vulnerable, personal, authentic story to someone, suddenly they feel like you're available to them, like you've created a space where they can share. And so perfect strangers routinely come up to me and tell me a secret they've been carrying for 40 years, because even though they don't know me and probably don't even remember my name, they recognize me as a person who was willing to be vulnerable on stage. And so they're willing to be vulnerable with me. And for that and many, many other reasons, storytelling can sell your product and convince people to follow you and change people's minds and bring you closer to people.
so people routinely come to you to, like, tell you about their secrets that they've been hiding for many, many, many years. That's
The
exciting. How,
yeah,
how does that make you feel when that happens?
it's different depending on what happens. 5 times in my life, I've had a woman come up to me after I told a story, not a story related to anything about their life, just a vulnerable story. Five
Okay.
times women have come up to me and told me about their miscarriage. And in all 5 cases, I was the first and only person they had ever told.
Damn.
My wife had a miscarriage. So she explained to me that, even though you didn't do anything wrong, you can't help but wonder, did I do something wrong? And so there's shame and involved. And oftentimes women don't even like women haven't even told their friends they're pregnant when they have their miscarriage. So that's a weird thing. So, in those cases, I feel honored. But then there's times like just before the pandemic, I told a story, just a silly story about a parenting blunder that I made. And a woman came up to me, and without even introducing herself to me, she said, every time I go into someone's house, even my own mother's house, I have to steal something. And then she pulled me in really close and whisper yelled, she said, you're the first person I've ever told that to before. So in that case, although I'm, sort of honored, I guess, that she shared this secret. She's like a 40-year-old lady who's obviously suffering from mental illness,
Yeah.
kleptomania. It also always puts me in a weird position because I don't know what to do. I say,
Yeah.
well, I'm glad
It
you
would be
told me, but I
crazy. Like,
bet
I
you could
wouldn't
get
know what to
some.
do either.
Right. Yeah. I said, I bet you can get some help. I once had a kid in high school. I was speaking to a whole auditorium of kids. And at the end of the presentation, a 16-year-old boy came up to me and he whispered in my ear, he said, I can't pee in toilets. I have to pee in the corner and on the floor. And then he ran away. Now, that's a real thing. As an elementary school teacher, it is a thing that some boys have where for some reason they have to pee on the floor and not in the toilet. Now, that's correctable. This kid got all the way to the age of 16 without telling someone. And he
Okay.
decided that stranger who I just met is going to be the guy I'm going to tell my deepest, darkest secret to. In that case, I was at least able to identify the kid, tell the school psychologist, they got that kid some help. But sometimes I get secrets shared with me and I just don't know what to do with them because they don't want me to help. They just want to say it. And so I'm sort of just left walking around with stuff that I can't do anything with. So it depends on what they've shared with me.
That sounds like yeah, like you're just walking around with secrets that you don't know what to do. That sounds like a big responsibility, right? So
Yeah.
uh, have you figured out a way? Like, have you figured out, like, I don't know, like what to do with those kinds of secrets that you don't know what to do with, like that are too, oh, how can I maybe describe them? I don't know, maybe serious, maybe it might be the word.
Yeah. Well, the only thing I can tell them, I suffer from PTSD, and so I have a therapist, and I've been in therapy for a long time, and so I always tell them, I say, listen, I think it's great and brave that you shared it with me. There are people more qualified than me who can help you, so maybe you should go seek one of those people. And if they ask me who, then I'll sort of give them some ideas. But I just make sure they understand that I guess the first step in solving a problem is to sort of like admit you have a problem and maybe tell someone you have a problem, but
Yeah.
it's not the only step. So I always let them know there is more you can do other than just telling me if you want to pursue that.
Hmm. So I just like can't help but ask, what, like, where does that, PTSD come from?
Well, when I was 22 years old, I was managing a McDonald's restaurant in Brockton, Massachusetts. And after the store was closed, three men in masks with guns broke the windows and came in. And I was counting money at the safe at the time. And there was a box at the bottom of the safe that contained money that I didn't have a key for. There was a little plaque on the box that said, "Manager does not have key." And these three guys didn't believe me. They thought I had the key or that I could somehow get into that box. And so they beat me, and then they eventually put me on the floor, and they put a gun to my head and said they were going to count back from 3. And when they got to 0, they were going to shoot me in the head. And I knew there were guys who had killed other people before, because the police had come and warned me that there were guys robbing restaurants in the area. And so, I was absolutely certain I was going to die that night. And they
Damn.
counted back from 3 and pulled the trigger on an empty gun. And then they did it a couple more times. And so for a long time, I lived with post-traumatic stress disorder until I met my wife, and I would wake up in the middle of the night with nightmares, screaming. And she said, "What is this?" And I said, "Oh, it's just my thing." I said, "Some people play tennis, some people collect stamps. I
I
just
wake
wake
up
up
in the
with night."
middle of the night screaming.
That's what I thought. Yeah. I kind of really believed that in my head. And she said, "That's not a normal thing. You should go get some help." So it took a long time. The story that I just told you, or just even the little bit I told you, I never could have said it out loud 10 years ago. It's a miracle that I can even say those words today.
Well, damn, and like that sounds like a really, really scary thing to go through, right? Like having someone tell you that they're gonna kill you, and then like pull the trigger, and then it's like,
Yeah.
and then you're
Yeah.
like, damn, I'm alive.
Right.
So, did you get help?
Did I get help
Yeah, like did you go to like some place to like get help and get that resolved, or did you
yeah.
just do some internal work or something like that?
No, my wife helped me get a therapist. I actually met with someone who specialized in PTSD with Vietnam veterans, and he
Okay.
was great for me. So it took a long time. It took a couple years. When you have PTSD, the only thing you don't want to talk about is what happened to you. And so basically, I would just sit on a couch across from my therapist every day, and he would try to get me to talk, and I would talk about everything else in my life except for the thing that happened to me. So it took a long time, but eventually I got there. And I still check in with my therapist once a month, because sometimes things can sort of like startle it, I guess is the best way to say it. I see the wrong movie, it's got some gun situation that's terrifying to me, or
Man, you have a gift. Like right now, like I'm just like, I feel like you're the go-to person to like go and tell all my secrets.
well, that's what happens is I tell people stuff like this, which a lot of people don't want to talk about, and um, and then they want to share. So yeah.
Yeah, like I just feel so comfortable. Like, and it's not that I have secrets, but I just feel like I can tell you anything. Like,
That is what
yeah,
happens to me. I mean, I tell people the only reason I'm a good elementary school teacher is not because I deliver lessons well or prepare them well. It's because every single day I tell my students stories. And most of the stories I tell them are about my embarrassment, my shame, my stupidity, letting them know, because they're 10 and that's a tough age to be. That's just about the
yeah.
time when you're approaching puberty, you feel awkward already. And so I tell them stories all day, and then they share everything that they got inside them with me. And then when it's time to
Then you can
teach,
do
they'll run.
something.
Yeah, they run through walls for me. So like they just try like hell to
Yeah.
learn, because we get close and really care about each other. And lots of my former students are my friends today. So I'm not the best teacher in like a technical sense, but I get by sharing my life with people and getting them close to me.
Damn, man, that's so awesome. That sounds like an empowering thing for your kids, for the kids that you've taught, that you've been an elementary teacher for, and 2 or 4, yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like an empowering thing for them, like seeing an adult, instead of seeing you as an authority figure who will do everything that you tell them to do. No, like they see you as like a vulnerable guy who is like not perfect and has been through a bunch of funny and embarrassing stuff, and then which makes it okay for them to go through that as well, right? Like
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
empowering.
It's it's great. I hear stories from kids that, they don't tell other people. Like, I was in jail for a period of time in my life, or not for long. But when I mention it to the kids, then I get a couple of years ago, I got the boy who came up to me and told me his father was in prison and he didn't think he could tell anyone about it.
Mm.
And, he asked me what prison was like. And I said, I wasn't in prison. I was in jail. That's different, but we can still talk. I was homeless
Ooh.
for a period in my life. And when I tell my students my homeless story twice so far, kids have come up to me. Most recently, a girl told me that she was living in the car with her mother over the summer, and they had a house now, an apartment, but she was worried every day that if they lost the apartment, they'd have to move back into the car. And she wondered if she could still go to school if she lived in a car. So like, I got a little girl who's worried about that every day, and
Yeah.
my willingness to share that with the kids allows them to share it with me. It also means that like when a girl gets her first period, she comes
Uh-huh.
up to me and she says, Mr. Dix, I just got my period. And I think like there's a million women teachers in this school. I'm like one of the
But
only
they're
men.
telling
Why are
you.
you go tell one of them? I don't use the products you require right now. But it is sweet that they're willing to tell me, and the reason is because I tell them all about all my shame
Yeah.
and embarrassment, and that's how they're feeling in that moment, or
Damn. That's
lost.
a
So
power. That's a powerful thing, man. So, man, let's see. Is that like your superpower, or do you think like all of us can get people to open up and tell, and get them to tell us their deepest, darkest secrets through the power of storytelling? Like, is that your thing, or is that everyone can tap into something?
I say in my book that it is a superpower that anyone can sort of take the mantle and use if they learn how to tell stories and learn to tell the right stories, not the stories where we do something wonderful. That doesn't bring anyone closer to us. There's a big belief sort of in the world today amongst certain people that we should be bragging about our accomplishments.
Mm,
And nobody wants to hear about your accomplishments except perhaps your parents.
yeah.
If I went into school and I told my students, I published 9 books and one of them was a bestseller and I'm the winningest storyteller in all of moth history, that doesn't make anyone feel closer to me. That just pushes them away.
Yeah.
So the first story I tell my students every single year on the first day of school is how in 6th grade I was at a pool party, an after school pool party with my class, and I went off the diving board and I hadn't tied my bathing suit tightly, and it was a hand me down for my cousin because I was poor growing up. And so when I hit the water, I left my bathing suit behind and I was swimming in the pool naked in front of all my classmates. And
Damn.
I tell them that every year. And I had a father once call me and say, why are you telling my daughter about you swimming naked in pools on the first day of school? And I told him, I said, listen, your daughter might get her period this year. And when she does, she's going to feel okay telling me about it instead of like feeling lost and hiding or running to the bathroom on her own. And it's because I'm willing to tell stories like that. And he said, all right. He said, you gave me a good reason. And he was fine with it. So, that's what I do. And anyone can do it. You got to have the skill to tell a good story, which my book helps, and anyone can tell a good story if they study a little bit and practice a little. And you also have to have the courage to be vulnerable and share the stuff that most people don't share.
Okay. So which book is this? Which book is it that we can get our hands on to be able to learn this superpower, to be able to connect with anyone and, like basically get anyone to relate with us?
Sure. So Storyworthy is my book on how to tell great stories. And then my recent book, Someday is Today, is the book to help people who want to be creative in any way, whether you want to be a storyteller or a podcaster, or you want to, I don't know, learn how to juggle or, grow a garden, whatever your creative dream is. Someday is Today is the book that gives you very simple, actionable steps to structure your life so that you can get a lot done and put yourself in the right mindset and surround you with the tools that you need in order to be successful.
Okay. So some days today and then story worthy. That's
Yep. Those
awesome.
are my 2 nonfiction titles.
Cool. Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
And then the rest are like nonfiction, like for kids.
And the others are, no, the others are adult novels. I've written
Oh,
6
got it.
novels for adults. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. Awesome. All right. That this is an amazing, cool. So like before I ask what I want to ask, which is like, okay, so like tell me a little bit about, I don't know, maybe the framework of telling stories or like some keys. You said you like you fell in love with telling stories and standing on stage in 2011. So like, what did you fall in love with though? Did you fall in love with standing on stage or telling stories?
I think I fell in love with sharing my life with people. The first story I ever told was about pole vaulting in high school and how I used to root against my teammates so that I could be perceived as the best pole vaulter on the team, which is something that people really do. You know, sometimes you root against your own teammate because you want to be the best one on a team, but nobody ever says that out loud. That's like not a, it's not an okay thing to say, but I said it, and it worked out really well. So I loved the idea that I could say things that I wanted to say that maybe I felt at one point I wasn't supposed to say. And so that's sort of what I loved. And I love the instantaneous response. As a novelist, I write a book. It takes a year to write it. It takes a year to publish it. And then I never get to see what people think about it. Like I don't get to watch people read it and laugh at my jokes. I just have to know that the books are out in the world and maybe they're laughing and maybe they're burning them and I don't know what they're doing. But when I tell a story on a stage, I know right away if I've done a good job or not, because I can tell by the reaction of the audience. And I love that
Exactly.
instantaneous reaction.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I also, I mean, it sounds like I would also, I think I'm not doing it enough. Like telling things that I want to tell either that, instead of like holding them to myself, just telling them, that feels like something refreshing and like, just like, yeah, it feels like something refreshing. And
Yeah. It's it's nice. It's nice to be out in the world. And the thing I always tell people is it seems scary to share something that most people would not share. But what happens is if you dare to do it once, you'll discover that the response you get is always positive.
people
Unless you're
connect to
telling
you.
a story, like I always say, you can't tell a story. If you ever hurt an animal in some way, don't tell that story. No one's going to like you for hurting an animal of any kind. And if
Yeah.
you've ever hit a woman, nobody wants to hear that either. Like you're never going to be the winner of those stories. But basically anything else that you've done, one of my most famous stories is about a time I pretended to be a charity worker and stole money door to door to find gas money because I was stuck far away from home with no gas money. So I pretended to be collecting for charity and used that money to put gas in my car, and that's a despicable thing to do. And yet people love that story, because
Well,
we've all done
that's
terrible things in a moment of desperation. And that's what happened for me.
I mean, you got to do what it takes, right? That to me is like being resourceful,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it's not the best thing. I mean, if I had done it yesterday, maybe I wouldn't be talking about it. It was 25 years ago, and that helps too.
Yeah, of course,
Yeah.
yeah. So and so right now, it came to my mind again, how you said that your elementary kids would run through walls for you, right? And that's something that could also be implemented in, like, in the workplace, like for any business owner, right? Who's willing to be vulnerable and honest and have integrity and like just share stories with their employees in order for him to build trust, right? In order for them to connect, to build relatability, like they'll be able to build a culture in which their employees will be willing to run through walls for them, right? Like that's something that could be applied in business. Has that been your experience? Have you heard anything like that? Have you like experienced anything like this?
All the time. It's the work I do all the time with people. I try to help corporate executives and business owners and priests and ministers and rabbis and advertising people, all of these people. I try to help them understand that, yeah, if you are willing to share of yourself, people will feel closer and more connected to you. And once that happens, retention improves, you hold on to your employees. They're willing to work harder for you. They feel more connected to the business or to the company that they're working for. They're more willing to follow you wherever you go. All of these things happen. And it's a very routine thing I do with people. I did it all day, basically. Today I was meeting with corporate executives and business owners and a wildlife photographer who was working on building his business by taking people to Alaska and trying to find ways to get more people to go to Alaska with him. And by sharing yourself, suddenly people are more willing to travel with you and to trust you. So yeah, all the time.
Got it. Yeah. Yeah. It's definitely been my experience, and I can definitely get better at it. So like what advice would you give me to become a better storyteller? Or like, not just me, right? Like, I'm asking selfishly, honestly, but I know that this will also serve the audience. So like, how is it that you can tell like effective stories?
Well, the first thing you have to have is the right stories to tell. I actually think the most important thing is to have lots of stories to tell. And so I have a lot of strategies in my book, but the one I talk about the most, the one that sort of has become known in terms of me, is homework for life. It's a process that I teach people. It's a homework assignment I gave myself about 10 years ago. I was worried that I was going to run out of stories to tell. And I didn't want to be one of those guys who told the same story every time. You know, we know those people, we hate those people. And so what I did was, and what I still do, and what thousands of people all over the world do now, is at the end of every day, I sit down and I ask myself, what is the most story-worthy moment from this day? Which really is to say, if I had to tell a story about something that happened today, even if nothing really happened, if it was a boring day, what would that story be? The prompt I really give myself is this: if someone kidnapped my family and they said, you don't get them back until you tell us a story about something that happened today, what would I tell?
Damn.
And then I write it down. I don't write the whole story down because that's crazy. You know, those are journalers. Those are people who write diaries. I'm not interested in that. I just use an Excel spreadsheet. I 2 columns, the date on the left, and I stretch that right column across, and it's in the right column that I write down whatever the story is. So I don't give myself much, like 4 or 5 sentences is all I'm looking for. And my goal was to find maybe one new story a month that I wasn't noticing. You know, 12 news stories a year would have been great. But what happens instead, and it's not just me, everybody, is we discover our lives are filled with stories, more than you could ever imagine. Like things that are happening to us or being said
That's
to us,
awesome.
or thoughts that we're having. Tons and tons of stories. The tragedy of our lives really is that we walk through our lives like our memories are meaningless, like they're
them,
worthless.
yeah.
And we just forget everything. And so like, if you just think, I mean, you're younger, but like, you know, if you imagine like, I don't know, 4 years ago, you know, and I say, how many stories you got from 4 years ago? You know, imagine that year of your life. You went around the sun. How many things can you say about that year? Most people can't say much, you know? Yeah. But that doesn't mean you were boring or you had a bad year. It just means you didn't take the time to record it, to notice it. Once you start asking yourself, what's the most story-worthy moment from my day, you'll develop this lens over time. So nowadays, I find 6 or 7 things every day that are worth recording. Not all of them are story-worthy. About 10% of what I write down will ultimately be told on a stage. But the other ones I want to hold down to too. You know, my wife says a beautiful thing to me, or I see my neighbor do something ridiculous. Today, for the first time in my life, I saw a pack of wild turkeys in my backyard. And I live in the suburbs, not like turkey territory, right?
Yeah.
So I was sitting here talking to a client, watching a pack of wild turkeys in my backyard. I'm never going to tell a story about it, but I'm going to put it in my homework for life because it made this day different than the next day. So I'm holding on to things. So if you just do that, that's going to be really important. I do there's a TED talk on homework for life that gives a lot more details and examples, can really help you get started. So you can just Google homework for life and go watch the TED talk and find out more about it and see some examples of it. But if you just do that, then you're going to have more stories to tell. And I always think the person with the most stories to tell is probably the best storyteller.
Hey, sorry for the interruption. Real quick, do you want to know how I've been using my podcast to build a multi-million-dollar network with over 100 7, 8, and 9-figure entrepreneurs, reach hundreds of my ideal clients with my message, coaching, service, and podcast, get invited to speak on 4 stages in the last 2 months alone, through my own events, and have over 100 successful entrepreneurs being willing to speak at my events, become a millionaire in 1 year, get mentored by multimillionaires, and achieve goals that I thought were going to take me 10 years to achieve in 1 year, and ultimately get unstuck and make quantum leaps of progress in my business and life with less than 1 hour of work just by being myself. If you answered yes to any of those, I just want to invite you to a free training showing you how I've been able to build a multi-million-dollar network that is helping me achieve bigger income goals faster with only 1 hour of speaking and just being myself. To be honest, I thought I was going to be a multi-millionaire, speak on stages, throw my own events, and live a successful, happy, and fulfilled life of growth and impact in 10 years from now. That seemed so far away, but my podcast has been able to help me do that in less than 6 months. I'm actually doing all of that this year at the age of 21 with my podcast. I'm reaching thousands of people with my message, my service, my podcast, my coaching. I've gotten booked to speak on 4 stages in the last 2 months. And on these stages, I'm going to be getting in front of hundreds of my ideal clients, making roughly around 15 to 30K plus per event. Not only that, I have a network of over 100 high-level, multi-million-dollar entrepreneurs who have all agreed to speak at my events. Getting clients is a problem of the past. I've gotten the opportunities to learn from billionaires, and I'm collapsing decades of time, and I'm literally achieving what I thought was going to take me 10 years to achieve in 1 year. All of this because I use podcasting as a networking tool, and I leveraged a rare concept called the cloak track. And I want the exact same thing for you. Just imagine where you could be in 1 year from now if you get this free training right now. That is why I'm inviting you to this training. On this short training, you're going to learn how a small group of purpose-driven entrepreneurs, authors, coaches, course creators, and speakers have combined podcasting with this rare concept called the cloak track to build a multi-million-dollar network, reach thousands of their ideal clients with their message, books, courses, coaching, make an extra $118,800, get booked on 10 stages, and build a successful network of entrepreneurs who speak on their stage. All of this in under 6 months. I'm going to walk you through the 4 steps to make this work. Step number 1, alignment. Getting clear on who you want to be, what you want to do, your goals, your purpose, and aligning all of this with building your podcast and your ideal podcast guest. Step number 2, leveraging the cloak track to find your ideal podcast guest and never running out of them. Step number 3, leveraging the cloak track to close an interview with anyone, no matter how rich, famous, or out of your league they may seem. And step number 4, the content machine. The content machine is the key to tapping into other people's audiences. And I'm going to show you all of those 4 steps. The link to access this free training is in the description of this video. Click on it and go watch this training right now so that you can learn how you can too build a multi-million-dollar network that helps you achieve bigger goals faster and with less effort. Note, this training is only available to 18 people, so act right now, and I hope you enjoy the rest of this episode. Bye-bye.
So start there with that.
Boom. That's like a mic drop moment. Damn, and you just made me reflect on my entire life. Like my life is amazing, and I'm not recording it. I'm like, it's amazing because I feel like I'm living with purpose and with fulfillment and with, like with meaning. But then, like on a week from now, I'll forget everything that I'm doing right now.
Yeah, unless something big happens, and usually the big stuff doesn't make a good story either. Like the little stuff tends to be the best stories. We're looking for the little things, these smaller moments in our lives when people say things to us, or we change our mind, or we see the world differently. Those are the stories we're looking for. So Homework for Life will let you see the little things that you're not even noticing yet, which is a tragedy because your life is just like it's passing before your eyes. You know how people say time flies? It doesn't fly for me, because every single day gets something, and in my case, half a dozen things that make this day different than every other day. So time
just changed my life, man. And I hope everyone listening, like, will get a like Google Sheets and put the day on one column, and then put like the story that they're going to be journaling on the other column, and then just start implementing, because I will. Yeah. I will, because it's very, like, I journal. And I used to have a practice in which I used to go through a series of questions to see how productive slash, how well I performed for the day, and what were the lessons that I learned from the day, right? And I used to do that, and I used to like it a lot, but it used to take like 30 to 45 minutes. So I don't do it anymore. Now I do it more briefly, but I used to really enjoy it, but now I don't do it because of the time. But like, that is something that sounds like it's something very brief to do.
2 minutes.
That I would really enjoy, and that would be really meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah. And once you get started on it, the truth of the matter is, I'm recording them through the day because I'm so afraid to lose them. So by the time I get to the night, I'm usually just taking them off my phone and moving them onto my spreadsheet, and then taking a moment to go, did I forget anything that happened today? Let me make sure I get everything in. But I think it's important. Some people have gratitude journals. and I think those are fine.
You have
But the problem
stories.
with the gratitude journal is nobody wants to hear about your gratitude. That's not a
Yeah.
story,
Or for
oftentimes it's
you.
the moments when you don't have gratitude. That's the best story to tell. The time when things didn't work out and you're not feeling so good. Those are the stories to tell. So you can do your gratitude journal, but nobody wants to hear it. If you want to actually have stuff that can connect with people, you got to find little moments in your life that say something important to you.
Okay, so take a look at this. So yesterday I started a completely new business. They already have 8 employees for, and how I did it is that I went to like this virtual like freelancer page, right, in which people are looking for jobs, and I just invited a bunch of people, like copywriters, video editors, designers, a bunch of people that I need to be able to build this agency in Mexico, because I already have this agency in the US, but now I'm building it in Mexico, and I just like there were like 30 people on the call. And then I just asked everyone, right, like their name, who they were, and what they did. And then I believe like I have like this gift in which I can feel like I'm really in tune with like my feelings, and I just whenever I hear you, I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have a really good time, or like this is it, right? And I just at the end of the call I was like, you, and you are hired, right? But now I'm going crazy, but because I hired first and then I'm interviewing. And I'm like, so that's why I told you that I'm having like 9 hours of calls today, because I hired first and then interviewed second.
Right.
So that's a
Not the
crazy
best
thing to
order.
do.
Yeah. But we're looking for moments like that, it doesn't take much to
And I'm
tell a
gonna
good.
go and record it because this, like, I don't want to forget this, man. This is a crazy thing that I've never done. That I don't know how many people have ever done this, but yeah, I don't want to forget. I almost want to cry because I was like, damn, if I hadn't jumped on this call with you right now and you hadn't told me about this homework for life, this question, what is the most story worthy moment of today? I wouldn't have gotten the idea of like recording that, and then in a week from now, I would have forgotten this crazy thing that I did.
Yeah. It's how we live our lives if we're not careful. If you talk to any parent, when their kid is 18 and graduating high school, how many times has a parent said, oh, you're not going to believe what my kid just said. I got to write that down. And then they never write it down. And their kid's 18. They can't remember a damn thing their kid ever said or did.
Damn.
And so whenever my
No,
kids
I
say
cannot let
something to
that
me,
happen, man.
yeah, like it's just a shame how we live our lives sometimes if we're not,
Yeah, man.
we got to be
Damn.
cognizant of what is being said and what's happening, you know. So got to pay attention.
I almost like want to cry, man. Like I'm really emotional right now.
Well, you're lucky because I didn't start doing it. I invented the process when I was 39, So the other good news for people who are older and for you too, when you start doing homework for life and you start really looking at your life through the lens of story, the other thing that happens is suddenly your life sort of your world cracks open, and the memories from the past, the ones you forgot about, the ones you weren't smart enough to write down, a lot of them will come back because you'll suddenly
Because you're
start thinking
looking
like, yeah,
exactly.
because you're looking at your own life and then suddenly something from the past is connected. Things that I can't believe I forgot have come back to me. And I'm so glad that they come back to me. I'm like, oh, thank God I remembered that moment. And that goes into my homework for life too. I record it as a memory that I had on this day. And those are the best because now I'm like filling in the dots and making my life feel longer and better with every memory that I find.
Man, I'm so full of joy right now. Damn.
Well, that's one of a bunch of strategies I have in the book. So there's other strategies. The other ones are mostly designed to sort of mine your past and help you find things that you may have forgotten. So in the book, you can do lots of other things that'll help you find those stories.
Cool. So story worthy and someday today.
Yep.
Well, I'm definitely gonna go get the book. Because I'm so passionate about like my life, and I want to make sure that like I want to be on my deathbed, and I want to be like, like what a freaking ride, right? And
That's my goal. Yeah.
exactly,
I'm
right?
well, when I
That
was on that floor with that gun to my head and I thought I was going to die, the surprising thing was I didn't feel sad or angry or even scared. The only feeling I had was regret. I was
damn.
thinking about everything I hadn't done. And so ever since that moment on that floor, I have designed my life. This is why someday is today is the book. I've designed my life to make sure that I'm
You're
living my
living it.
best life,
Yeah.
because I don't I plan on whenever my time comes to be able to look back and think I did a great job, meaning I chased my dreams of becoming a writer and a teacher and all those things that I wanted to do.
I
But
hired,
also I
yeah.
spent like plenty of time petting my cat and playing with my kids and playing golf with my friends and spending time with my, all of those other things are just as important. So, I'm not sort of a workaholic, but I'm a person who has lots of dreams and he wants to chase every one while also making sure all of those other things are taken care of too.
Cool. Man, you changed my life, Santa. I'm so excited. Like, I'm so excited to like, because we don't even know, right? Like how much this podcast will change people. And I hope people, like when people are listening, I hope they listen what I listen. Like, and which they probably won't, because everyone is, viewing life from their own like lenses. But I hope this makes the impact that it's making on me, man. Like, yeah,
Well,
yeah.
they have
Like,
to remember two things. The reason people don't do homework for life, if they fail,
mhm.
one is commitment, because people are more than willing to do homework for life on days when something happens. But it's the days when really nothing happens that you have to do it, because that's the one that strengthens your lens. It's
Got it.
easy to do homework for life when something cool happened. When you get turkeys in your backyard, homework for life is easy, right? But
Yeah.
on a day when nothing is really happening, that's when you got to sit down and go, all right, what's the one thing from the day? I can't let the day go by till I got something. So you have to do it every single day. And the other problem people have is they may lack the faith, because they'll be excited about it now, but you'll do it for a week and then look back on it and go, ugh, I don't have a lot of good stuff here. That's okay. You're not going to be good at it. You don't have that lens right now. And remember, only 10% of the stuff that I write is stuff I'm ever going to talk about on stage. But I'm
Cool.
so glad I have it. I'm not
Yeah.
losing any days. One of my favorite activities is I get on a plane without Wi-Fi and I go back and say, I'm going to go relive 2017. And I open up my homework for life for 2017 and I just go day by day. And I go, oh, the things I'm like, oh my God, I'd forgotten about that. Oh my God, I can't remember. Oh, that is so fun to remember. So go relive your life. Imagine if your like great great grandmother had been doing homework for life, wrote down one sentence every day. It'd be the most valuable thing you own. Like your house catches on fire, you grab grandma's journal, you run out the door, right? The problem is nobody ever writes anything down. Everyone lives their life as if it's meaningless. Like memories are
Yeah.
like pennies that we let fall out of our pockets, and we
That's
have to
fucking
hold on to
crazy.
these things.
Man, so you have kids, right?
Yeah,
So
two of
how
them,
old are they?
13 and 10.
How are they doing homework for life?
A little bit. My daughter is. My son is not yet. My daughter's a writer. She writes every day. She's working on novels. She writes on Wattpad. She's got
Nice.
all that stuff going on. So she knows about homework for life. I've blogged. I've written a blog post every day for the last 21 years. She reads it. She understands the value of like recording things. My son is 10. He's a 10-year-old boy. He's got a lot of growing up to do. So he hasn't figured it out yet. But my students do it. I introduce it to my students right early on, first week of school. I don't make them do it because it's not in the curriculum, but more than half of them do it. And some of them have been doing it for 10 years. So I got 10-year-old kids who are now 20 who email me and say, thank God I've been doing homework for life. I caught all of my high school, all of my middle school. Thank God you gave me homework for life. There's truly 100% not a day that goes by that I don't get an email or a tweet or an Instagram message or a Facebook post where someone is not telling me that they're doing homework for life and they're so grateful. Every single day I hear from someone around the world who's doing it. So if
So
you're
then
not
this,
able to
this
do it,
reaction that I'm having, is that like normal to you?
yeah, well, a lot of times, yeah. I mean, I had a woman once, my favorite phone call probably. No, not my favorite, but one of my favorites. A lady called me and she said, I was in a workshop with you when you taught me homework for life 6 months ago. And I said, oh, that's nice. I had no remembrance of her. I do a lot of workshops. And she said, I started doing homework for life. And she said, I'm 50 years old. And she said, I've never felt important. She said, I always thought I was an ordinary person and I was going to die quietly. And she said, now I'm doing homework for life. And I suddenly understand that my life has important things in it that I haven't been noticing. And I'm a lot more important. And I have a lot more to say and a lot more to see than I ever knew before. And then she started crying on the phone. And I started crying on the phone because it's a beautiful thing. I mean, it's
It
sad that it
is.
took her till she was 50 to figure
Yeah.
it out. But I'm not surprised, because I always think that, like, if you're a woman or if you are not white or you are, LGBTQ or you're in some marginalized group, I think that it's a lot easier to think that your life is worth less than others. You don't see yourself on the TV as much. You don't see people in power that look like you. Whenever someone asks me, they say things like, you were homeless, you were in jail, you were on trial, you suffered that robbery. How did you manage to overcome all of that and get where you are today? The first thing I always say is, well, I'm a white, straight American man with no physical disabilities and no mental illness. I am the luckiest human being on the planet. And any white, straight American man who can't make it has a problem. So, I always acknowledge the fact that if I was a woman, or if I was Black, or if I was gay, or if I had a mental illness, or if I was in a wheelchair, I might not be where I am today. So, so it never surprises me when, I hear from someone who started doing Homework for Life and they start to see their life differently, particularly when they're in a group that is marginalized, because I think that the word marginalized is real. I think people are told that they're not as important as they really are, particularly if they're not someone who looks like me.
Awesome. Well, let's see. I just want to make sure to get it right. And we have like 5 minutes, and I end my interviews with 5 questions, man.
Yeah, go for it.
But before I ask those 5 questions, I want to make sure that I get it right. So, like, how would you recommend like writing it, like, like I use like digital paper, right? So, like writing it, or would you recommend like typing it, or like how is it that you set up your sheet? Like,
for me, I type, but I got people who do it in notebooks. But the key is you got to limit the amount of writing you do, because if you write too much, you're going to stop doing it. It's got to be like brushing your teeth. It's got to be as simple as brushing your teeth. So however you want to do it. Some people use things like Evernote and Notion, and they include photographs sometimes. Like if I had taken a photograph of that flock of turkeys, that might have gone into my Homework for Life if I was one of those people. I don't use photographs, but some people like to use photographs. Some people like to use sound waves. However you do it, the important part is you got to do it every single day, no matter what, and you have to keep it short. Even if I'm doing 6 entries, I average about 6 a day. Each one takes 1 minute to write. So 6 minutes at most, and I'm writing them through the day usually, it's usually like, I was on the golf course today. Oh, my friend said something hilarious in the phone, right? At the end of the night, all I do is cut and paste it into the spreadsheet. So whatever works for you.
Got it. Cool. So, man, the first question is, I probably know what you're going to say already. If you can go back in time to give your 20-year-old self some advice, what would you say?
I would say it's going to be okay.
Okay.
Because I think the worst thing that can happen to a person is losing hope. And when I was 20, I was homeless and facing trial, and as poor could be, hungry, poor. And I started to worry that I was never going to pick myself back up. And that's a terrible feeling. And so to know at 20 that it would be okay, and I would manage to pull myself together and get my life moving again, that would have been a enormously valuable thing for a younger version of me to know.
To know that, yeah. Because when you're going through that kind of stuff, like, it seems so, well, it is real, but it seems so like you can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. Right?
Yeah,
so,
it's why people turn to drugs and alcohol and other addictions, because when you lose hope, there's nothing left to feel good about. And so a lot of times people seek to feel good in other ways, in any way they can find it. And I got lucky that I never turned to any of those things, but the loss of hope is just the worst. So I'd let my former self know that everything's going to be okay.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. The next question is a mindset shift. So what is a mindset shift that you've had that you think, has contributed to your success?
I guess it's sort of right back to that greasy tile floor with the gun to my head. The mindset shift I've adopted is this: when I have to make a decision about how to spend the next hour, the next day, the next week, a period of time, I've stopped relying on the current version of me. If you ask me what I want to do right now, I'd want to eat a cheeseburger and go play golf just about all the time. Those are the 2 things I'd like to do. But that doesn't help me. That doesn't serve me. So the mindset shift I have is I ask the 100-year-old version of myself, I say, how should I spend this hour? Because that person, the one at the end of his life on his deathbed, he never thinks watching Netflix is a good idea. He always says there's plenty of time to watch TV and you won't remember what you watched anyway. So go pet a cat, write a book, go for a bike ride, Go hit some balls at the golf course. Go play with Charlie. That's what he tells me to do, the 100-year-old version of me. So whenever it comes to decision making, I don't ask myself as I exist today. I look forward to the 100-year-old version of myself and say, how should I spend the time? He always has the right answer for me.
And how do you tap into that though? Like, how do you make that a habit?
Well, in my book, Someday is Today, what I say is you got to create like a visual representation of that 100-year-old version of myself. Yeah. A woman just wrote to me today who's reading Someday is Today. I say, pick somebody. And I say, even like get a picture if you want, or draw a picture. And she said, my 100-year-old version is Rose from Titanic, that old lady in the movie Titanic. She said, that's going to be the 100-year-old version of me that I'm going to talk to all the time. And I said, great. So it really is the idea that, wow, I have 2 hours ahead of me. How am I going to spend this time? Right. And I just say, well, what would the 100-year-old version want me to do? Yeah. And it's never binging Netflix. It's never staring at my phone. It's never playing a video game. It's always write that book, go for a walk, go chat with your daughter, go for a bike ride, go do the things that you can do now that you're not going to be able to do when you're 100. When I'm 100, I can binge all the Netflix I want because I think I'm not going to be getting around very much anymore. Right. So I'm going to make sure that today I do all the things that I can do today to make my dreams come true or to make my family, happy, those kinds of things.
I'm just like taking it in, man. Thanks.
My pleasure.
The next question is, if you could give, we talked about this modern gentleman who has true freedom and has it all. So if you could give a man, right, trying to become this modern gentleman that I call, what would you say to him?
I think I would say something I always say to my students. I always tell them that the thing you want in life more than anything else is choice. When you can choose what you're doing, where you're living, who you're with, who you are, that is the most valuable thing. And so that means you're not always chasing wealth, because sometimes chasing wealth takes away all your choices. I got friends who make a lot of money and they work as attorneys and they go in at 7 and they leave at 6 and they don't have a lot of choice. They have a nice car and they have a big house and basically their life is now decided for them. So I have other friends who live much more modestly and make smaller incomes and they have a lot more freedom. They have the ability to choose how they spend their time more because they have more free time. So I tell my students, whatever you're pursuing, in the end, the most valuable thing is to be able to choose how you spend your time, who you spend it with, and where you are. So that is what you should be chasing, is the ability to choose how you live. And if that means maybe money will help with that, that's great, but it doesn't always. It means thinking about like, what do you want to do for a living? There's a reason I'm an elementary school teacher, a whole bunch of reasons, but one is from June to August, I don't work. I work my other businesses if I want to, but I get the summer off with my kids. Today was a summer day. I chose how to spend today. I played golf with my friends in the morning. I went swimming with my kids this afternoon. I went for a bike ride. I chatted with some clients. I chose my day completely. That was a beautiful thing. And so, find a way to be able to make as many choices as possible.
Damn, man, you say beautiful things, man. How old are you, man?
I'm 51.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
A lot of wisdom. I like
Thank
that.
You. It was hard earned. It took a long time.
You like it made me like insecure because I'm like, wow, damn, am I choosing right? But no, like spending my day how I spent it today. That's like I'm going after significance. That's what I want.
If you're making the choices, and we can't choose everything, I'm a teacher. I got to go to school, right? I'm also got 184 sick days. So when I'm not feeling well, I don't go to school. And that's a nice choice to make too. When I was managing McDonald's restaurants for 9 years while putting myself through college, if I was sick, get your ass into work, right? It didn't matter even though I was cooking food, it didn't matter. Get your ass into work, right? So, it's just a matter of structuring your life. I work 5 minutes from my school. I live 5 minutes from my school by choice because I wanted to have a way to choose my time. I got friends who work an hour or two away from work. So they've got an hour or two commute every day. I'm home in 5 minutes,
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you can't always do that, but just try to make those choices that try to build your life in such a way that maximizes as many choices you can find.
You said it. Chase your ability to choose.
Yeah. Yep.
Boom. There you go. Last question is, same thing. Like I call it a modern queen. All right. If you could give a woman, right, like some advice, like a woman trying to become this modern queen and have it all, right? What do you say to her?
What I tell my female students is I say that men are worthless until they're at least 25. So I say, take care of yourself, build yourself. There's nothing wrong with dating, have a little fun, but don't invest in any man before he's at least 25 years old, because he's not worth anything. And I really kind of believe that. I tell my female students, I always have a lunch with them and I say, listen, the world will be a better place if more women are running more things. And so we need you to run things. I need you to run for office and open businesses and, become all of the things that right now our male dominated world has a bunch of men in charge of. So I say, just take care of yourself. And then, when you're old enough, when they're 25, then you can start looking and going, all right, maybe I'll invest a little more time in someone that I'm interested in, whoever it is, but I say, just stay away from serious relationships for a long time. Take care of yourself first. We need more women in this world running more stuff.
100%. Yeah. Take care of yourself first. That's why the first freedom is physical freedom, taking care of your body and your mind, learning how to love yourself, and emotional freedom. Again, taking care of yourself, learning how to love yourself. So yeah, I 100% agree. And Matthew, I've had an amazing time, man. Like I told you at the beginning. And I have 2 action items that I'm going to implement right now, and I want to tell them to you.
Yep.
1, I'm going to start doing homework for life.
Great. Today. Right.
Today, yeah. And
Excellent.
The second one is, like this like ideal client avatar that everyone does for their business.
I do, but I don't do that. But yes, I know how people are interested in that.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna do my 100-year-old self avatar. Like,
oh, that's great. Yeah. That's it's really important.
Yeah. And I'm gonna do that, and then I'm gonna, well, not try, but like program myself to, whenever I'm faced with a situation, like a decision to make, instead of making a decision based on who I am at that moment, I'm going to make the decision based on who I'm going to be, right?
Yeah.
Like my 100-year-old self. So
I like that. Who I'm going to be. Yeah, that's great.
Thanks.
Yep.
So I think that's going to be 2 very powerful things that I'm going to implement. So thank you. And
my pleasure.
Other people, are inspired to implement something that you shared with us today, and they want to learn more, where can they, get more of you? Where would be the best place to find you?
Well, if they go to MatthewDix.com, just my name, they can find everything there. You can find my books wherever books are sold. And I have a podcast on storytelling called Speak Up Storytelling. So you can go learn about storytelling there. Meet my wife. She's my co-host. And so, but if you just go to MatthewDix.com, you'll basically find everything there. Awesome.
Well, Matthew, thank you very much for being here, man. I appreciate it. And I'll see you later.
All right. Take care, man. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you for watching the Gentleman's Success, Happiness, and Fulfillment Talk podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, share it with one friend, leave us a comment, and let us know. 99% of people never leave a review or comment, but we love and are very thankful with the 1% of you who do. If there's something or someone you want to see on this podcast, send me a message on Instagram at Alex_Ramirez1020 and let me know. As a thank you for that, I have an amazing surprise for each and every one of you who does take the time to leave us a comment or review on YouTube or one of the major podcasting platforms